welcome everybody. I'm MJ Bolt. I'm the host of UnBolted, and it is Friday, January 16th, and I am pleased to have with us today Brian Talbott, the Superintendent of East Valley School District, and Neale Rasmussen, who is the Assistant Superintendent of East Valley School District and also the CFO, I believe. Correct, Neale?
Correct.
All right. Thanks for being with us today. We're here to let Brian and Neale talk to us about this very important East Valley School District bond that is being presented on the February ballot, and share with people in the community about why, all the particulars, and how this works and why it's so important. So before we dive into that, I always like to give you a chance to tell our viewers, how did you get to be the superintendent and assistant superintendent? Tell us a little bit about your background and your story, Brian. Let's start with you.
Thank you very much. MJ, thanks for having us. My name is Brian Talbott. This is my 33rd year in education. I started my career in a little community, White Pass community between Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier. Left my beloved Spokane and wanted to go start somewhere where I wasn't known. My dad was a superintendent here in the region. And so being Brian Jr., I needed to go out and start somewhere. And so thought we would be there a couple of years, but what I learned quickly is that my roots grow fast, and the White Pass community was amazing to me. Gave me lots of opportunities. Taught for 7 years. Became middle school, high school principal there for 4 more years, and then was the superintendent there for 4 years. And though I loved White Pass and could still see myself being the superintendent there, my family, my parents and Trisha's parents, my wife, were over here on the east side, and 15 years away was long enough. So we came home, had the wonderful opportunity to serve as the superintendent in the 9 Mile Falls School District for 13 years. And then came to East Valley, had another opportunity, and came to East Valley 5 years ago, and have just realized, like, you don't know until you know. When we left White Pass, we were leaving more than a job, right? My wife was a teacher in a neighboring district. We were leaving a community of people that we loved dearly, and that kind of raised us up and raised our 3 kids up. It takes a village. And though I loved my time in 9 Mile, I never had that hook or that sense of community as I have felt again here in East Valley. East Valley is very much like White Pass. And the demographics are similar, and it's home. It's what I know, and it feels very much like my first 15 years. So I'm right where I belong. In this community, and great people, hard workers, blue collar, much of it, and they're just a great community.
Awesome. Wow, quite a history, Brian. How about you, Neale? Tell us about how you got to be assistant superintendent at East Valley School District.
So I'm a product of East Valley Schools. So I attended East Valley Schools K-12, graduated from East Valley High School. And when I was in college, I started working at the district part-time. And so I was working on my engineering degree, and obviously I'm not in engineering now. So really that part-time job at the school district really changed my career trajectory. And so I've been at East Valley most of the time. I was at the local ESD for a couple of years in between there, and I worked various roles in East Valley, but I've really moved up the system, and like they say, I think I bleed green from our green and white here in East Valley.
MJ,
I got the shirt on too, yeah.
I will share with you, like legitimately, we have a rocket scientist for an assistant superintendent, and he's the smartest guy in the room and doesn't have to tell anybody he is.
That's awesome. Yeah, we were Brian kind of mentioned that, Neale, you've been there pretty much your whole life for 41 of the 46 years since you went to school through K through 12, right?
I have, yep.
That's quite a legacy that you have. That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about your guys' community and, full transparency. I've known Brian since I was on the State Board of Education. We worked very closely together as I worked very closely with a lot of the superintendents in the area. And so I know a little bit about East Valley because I was on the Central Valley School Board, but it's also very different than Central Valley. So talk to us a little bit about, what the East Valley community is like and also what your district is like. I'm not even sure about your enrollment numbers at this point. So talk to the community a little bit about the particulars of East Valley.
Neale, why don't you go ahead and take that, and I'll follow up.
Yeah. So we have about 3,400 students, and unlike our neighbors to the South Central Valley, our enrollment has actually been declining. Lots of reasons for that. A lot of it is related to students graduate and their families don't move, and we don't have a lot of new development in East Valley. Most of the district is outside the Washington urban growth boundaries, so it restricts the size of new developments. And so while on the Central Valley side of the Spokane River, there's a lot of new development, on our side, there's really not. So our enrollment's been fairly flat. We have a fairly high free and reduced lunch rate in East Valley, so one of the highest in the county. We have a kind of a unique situation and in some ways shared with West Valley and Central Valley, where we don't have a central community hub. We have a lot of industrial businesses, an Amazon warehouse, but we don't have like a downtown East Valley. And so it's very challenging to define where East Valley's community is. We have a lot of little local communities, but I think the schools become that community for East Valley.
Yeah. And I think I will just piggyback. We are the highest impoverished district in Spokane County. We have a large number of multilingual English language learners, and that number continues to climb. We also have a very high number of special ed students, and much of that, in the state of Washington, we have housing that students can access from across the state. So we get a lot of kids that aren't necessarily East Valley kids, but they come to our boundaries and then we serve. But a lot of them have IEPs. So I think our average, or not average, our percentage is about 20%. Is that correct, Neale?
About 20% of our students are receiving special education services.
And so then you also tie in the large number of multi-language folks, and it isn't, I don't want to say it's a burden. It's a challenge for our system. How do we continue to provide services for kids that aren't coming to us in the normal track, if you will?
Yeah, for sure. Well, very fascinating for sure.
I'll just say one more thing. Sorry, MJ. I'm super proud of this fact that our teachers choose to be here, and they have, our sustaining of our employees is really strong. People have stayed their entire careers in East Valley, knowing truly that our demographics are tough. And so they choose to be here, and it's why I love this community so much, and why I love our staff so much, is that they buckle down and they serve our kids.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to get into talking about this bond a little more. And what's you all know I'm fairly conservative. I don't like as a conservative, I don't like a lot of taxes. But this is what I wanted to have you all on, because there's times when our taxes are a worthy cause, and also what it does in the community. And I think being in a neighboring district, it's been interesting to see the differences of when bonds pass versus when they don't. Do you guys want to maybe talk about that at all? Because I know you've had a fairly long history of not passing a bond. And also, let's talk about the difference between a bond and a levy. Let's get that up there right front so people understand the difference.
Sure. So, and the easiest way, and it's been used so many times, bonds are for building and levies are for learning. Truly, the entirety of a bond is around capital. It can only be used for facilities. And so the difference being that a levy, whether, we've run capital levies, we've been fortunate to pass 3 since 2018. And those capital levies are also for buildings. And what we've been able to do with those dollars, and Neale can explain more, but we've been able to do some safety and security that was desperately needed. Including like vestibules, one point of entry vestibules, those kinds of things, some parking lot, so that we have better separation from buses and parents and what have you. But really the capital levies that we've been doing, we're spending, we'll collect 18 million on the current capital levy that we're in. And we just replaced an elementary roof, 45,000 square foot elementary roof. And the total cost was $3 million. So when you look at 18 million over the course of 4 years, we're able to address a roof or an HVAC system, but we're not able to address the root of some of our problems. So levies are just for, the maintenance of operations of what we do. It's our lifeblood. About 20 to 22% of our budget, and we can't live without it, unfortunately. And in this state, we have become over reliant on our levies again. Even though McCleary, there was no fix. We are just living in what is the aftermath of a legislature trying to fix things, but frankly I believe it's worse than it was before they attempted the fix. So we're just in this spot. And just getting back to your point, I too am conservative. I like to be thoughtful about the taxes and what have you. We only get a couple of spots where we can say no to taxes, and unfortunately that's locally. I venture to guess that if folks had an opportunity to vote first locally and then elsewhere, they probably would. But this is the one place that they can say no to, and it's understood.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that, Neale?
Nope.
Yeah, and we had a question from a listener that said, until DEI wokeness is eliminated, should Republicans vote yes for any school bonds or levies to avoid indoctrination? Should kids be home or private school? I think that's a fair question that some people, are thinking about and wondering why this is important for the community on a whole.
Yeah, and I think that's the struggle that we've been in education. Frankly, I go back to COVID, and for the first 3 months when the government shut us down, the school districts were heroes, trying to get materials to kids, feeding kids, all of those kinds of things. And then suddenly, when we returned, and it was, Governor Inslee was saying, come back, we want you to come back, but be careful, and all of the things, right? And so since that time, I think schools have been put in the middle. We've always been in the middle. We're a microcosm of society, and society's kind of a mess. And so what happens is everybody sends their kids to school, and we're trying to figure out, right, all of the things. Really, what we want to do is educate our kids. And I understand that the indoctrination perspective, and the hard part is that we hear things that are happening in other districts or in other states, in what have you, and we just make the assumption that it's happening in our locals as well. We have an obligation to educate our kids in a way that is resembling our own community, and we're far away from Olympia, and so where we have some flexibility, we like to utilize that flexibility, and sometimes we don't have any flexibility at all. The laws are the laws, and whether we like them or not, I take an oath of office like my board does. And that oath of office is that we will follow the Constitution of Washington State as well as the United States of America. And in the last couple of years, we've been in conflict. with the feds and the state, and it's a very it is not an enviable position, and so that's part of it. What I can assure you is that we our kids come to us, and we do what we can to provide them with the opportunities, and it's a weird time. It's just a weird time in education and as a country as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I, Brian, I think you and I have actually had this conversation, even though it's been a while since we've talked, is the hard position that school boards and superintendents and the administration are in our local schools, because you are really truly between a rock and a hard place. And it was especially amplified during COVID, when you had the state mandating certain things and you had a community saying something else. And of course, the community knows you, comes to you and says, we want this, but you have the state mandating, holding funding and, certification and lawsuits over your head. You get a majority of your funding from the state, like 85%, correct? Or is that still about right?
About 72.
72.
Right.
Apologize for that.
No. No,
Yeah.
72% from the state, about 20 to 22 from our local, and the rest from the feds. So about 7% from the feds.
Okay, so you have that whole, lever, that huge, consequence, if you will, and you can't just choose not to listen.
Either way.
To the mandates from the state or the feds, or when they're in conflict like they are now, what do you do? So, and that's why it's so important to, pay attention to local elections, school board elections too. Like you said, Brian, where there's flexibility, you listen to your community and your local community and do, what they want you to do when you can. Right. So I do not envy you all. I bless you for doing, and we still have kids in these schools, usually the most needy kids, I've had, my son was a special ed student, and that's why I always appreciated what everybody did in the school district, because the private schools at that time wouldn't take them. And so you do have to educate everybody. So I appreciate that. What, Neale, real quick, because I think people get confused still with what is East Valley and what is not. What are the schools that are in, especially like the elementary schools? We know East Valley High School and East Valley Middle School are in East Valley, but what are the elementary schools that are in East Valley?
So we have 4 K-6 elementary schools, actually, and they do, most of them have preschool as well. So Trent Elementary, which is basically Pines and Trent. Trentwood Elementary is on Wellesley, just down the road from East Valley Middle School. We have Otis Orchards Elementary and Otis Orchards, and then East Farms Elementary in Newman Lake. And then we have a K-8 continuous curriculum school is what it's called, and they basically go 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off, so it provides an alternative, more balanced calendar for parents who like that calendar. And that's a complete choice school, so parents choose to go there. It's not a requirement to anyone to do that calendar.
We also have East Valley Parent Partnership, which is it's downstairs of the district office, and that is a home link partnership that we have. So it's K-12.
Gotcha. Where you kind of offer like a hybrid model. Is that right, Brian?
It's for parents who want to homeschool their students, and we help them support that. So it's something that for parents who choose that, we want to be a partner in that work.
Fabulous. And so you're defining kind of boundaries. What's the farthest west boundary? What road?
It's about University.
Okay.
It's not quite to University, but it's close.
University over to the state line.
Over to the state line.
And then north of?
Basically the river.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But a little bit over the river on one part.
Of course, it's not a straight.
It's not a straight line.
Complicated, right?
Yeah, well, but it's river for most of it.
Let's get into the specifics of this bond. So walk us through what the key projects are of this. It's a $220 million bond, correct?
Yeah.
And and what are the different projects? And then also it's coming right up, correct?
It
I mean,
is.
this is on the February ballot.
Yeah, ballots will drop next week.
Wow.
So what I will share before we get into what the projects are, the reason that the bond is as large as it is, 220 million, we have not passed a bond since 1996, so we're coming up on 30 years. And we haven't run a bond in over 12 years. I think 2012. Is that correct, Neil?
Yeah, 2013.
2013. Yeah. So there's the there's our history of bond passage, and you can see the last one, 96. That work, that bond was particularly around Trent Elementary School. So for the bulk of our buildings, we have not touched them in decades. And so we are at this position where we can't Band-Aid. We've been Band-Aiding. Expensive duct tape is really what it is when it's capital levies. And capital levies are great when you have to replace a roof, when you have to replace an HVAC. When we're at a position where we literally have to replace buildings, we're now that's where we are. We're at this critical juncture. Can we survive a few more years? Yeah, but something's going to happen, and we're just not that far off from a major malfunction at the high school or the middle school based on the age of the facilities. Case in point, we have Neil, can you explain the HVAC unit that we put on top of the shop?
Yeah, so we have so while part of the high school was modernized in the 80s, not all of it was. And so one of the HVAC units for one wing of the high school was installed in 1975. And it got to the point where it just died. And when we went to replace it, we pulled the unit off, went to put the new one on, and discovered the trusses in the roof were rotted. So now we're replacing trusses that we weren't expecting, and so that simple project turned into a $2.5 million upgrade that we really weren't planning on doing. But once we discovered the damage, of course, we can't have the students in an unsafe facility.
Wow. And so let's talk about specifically, what are the projects? But before we, along with that, when was East Valley High School built?
So East Valley High School was built in 1961.
Okay.
And then in the 80s, and it was built as a campus style building where all the buildings were separate buildings, and so kids would move between buildings as they moved between classes. So in the 80s, they connected all the buildings together, basically added hallways, and then added a second floor to part of the building. But really, probably at least half the building is original from 61, but the other half was touched in the 80s, but it is still the bones are still 1961 is really what it comes down to.
Gotcha. All right.
So, and then the middle school was built in 1968 and has had very little done to it in the time since then. So the project itself and the way we got here is we had a facilities improvement team consisting of community members, staff members, some experts, architectural contractor, and then so staff, parents, and some retirees, some folks within the community. And we went over the course of a year, and really the mission was to come up with what is it that we're going to ask the board to endorse and then pass in resolution. So initially, I thought we would come up with one or the other, either the high school or the middle school, maybe do some modernization of one or the other as well. And when we got into the numbers of how much it will cost to modernize a building versus build brand new, it was really, it came down to, gosh, would you replace parts of a car for the same amount as buying a new car? And so, and I know that's an oversimplification, but really that's what it came down to. The cost, millions and millions of dollars for us to upgrade the the current high school, and a part of that, we, the one of our favorites, the oh gosh, what's it called? The state has our clean energy bill.
The CCA, the Climate Commitment Act.
Yeah.
And well, no, there's a new Clean Buildings Act that says starting this year, all even buildings that were fine when they were built have to meet the current energy code, which is really difficult for us to do because they weren't built to the current energy code.
So for us to come up to code with the current high school, and this isn't addressing the plumbing and all of the things that we're having issues with from 1961, to bring that building up to code was $32 million. That's just addressing the climate issues, which is it's ridiculous, right? We should be grandfathered, but we've got a waiver, if you will, for a few years, and then we'll have to reapply. But there's all of these things that are combating, whether you build new or you try to work with the footprint that you have. So that committee, at the end of it, MJ came up with, it's a costly one, but it's a brilliant plan. And the reason it's a brilliant plan is it brings in a brand new middle school, it brings in a brand new high school. And then with the state, we'll be able to maximize our state construction assistance monies, and we will receive $55 million from the state. And so what we intend to do with that $55 million is that we will use those dollars on our elementary schools to bring the systems up to fresh life. You're basically looking at about about 12 million per school. And so when I'm talking about a roof that costs $3 million, right, you're able to do much more at each of those buildings with the state construction assistance. And then we utilize the local monies for the new high school and the new middle school.
Okay, so the 220 million bond proposition is basically for a brand new middle school and a brand new high school, correct? And
Correct.
then the additional state funds would help with the elementary schools and updating them.
Yes.
So, okay, so let's break down for taxpayers what this $220 million. I wish it was $220. $220 million means to them on their tax ticket.
Sure. Can you pull up which page do you want, Neil? Do you want the
tax rate, projected tax rate page, I think?
Which page is
that? Projected tax rates. Just keep going there.
Go forward. Okay.
Yeah, I'll stop you.
Is that it?
Keep going.
I've got it too small on my screen to be able to
That's
see.
Okay.
One more.
There you go.
So it's a $220 million bond, and it's a 21-year bond, so it'd be paid back over 21 years. And the cost of that bond, and these are estimates, because when we pass a bond, all we're allowed to collect from the taxpayers is the money that's needed to pay that year's bond payment. So we can't, even if assessed values double, we're not going to get double the money. We're just paying back the bond. So these rates are just estimates based on current assessed value that we use to help taxpayers see what it would cost. But the estimate's $1.96 per $1,000 assessed value. And we have a capital levy that's expiring. So that's 73 cents. So that's going to drop off at the same time this bond would start. And so the increase to what taxpayers are currently paying is $1.23 per $1,000 assessed value. And you can see for a $400,000 home, that's $492. And we chose that value because that is the median home price in East Valley School District. Obviously, if you have a home that's $200,000, that's going to be half of that cost. And we know that's a big ask. One of the things we're struggling with in East Valley is because we haven't passed a bond in so many years and have been debt-free for so many years, is now we're at the point where the needs are they're just huge.
Yeah. And it does, bonds passing help people be attractive to moving into the community. I mean, that was something we talked a lot about in Central Valley,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
so
MJ, that you're spot on. We are continuing to lose some of our students to neighboring districts, and when you're driving through a community and you're trying to decide where you're going to move, and you may not even do any research if you just drive by our high school and compare it to any of our neighboring school districts. The middle school, I drive down Bigelow every day. We live out off of Forker. And for years, I would drive down and I see that middle school and it looks like a baby prison. And so, when we were working on our strategic
that was the trend back then, to build middle schools that look like prisons. What is that?
I don't know. And then it's gray on top of it, right? So for the first couple of years, I would just drive down there and look at that building. And when we created our strategic plan, I just said, you know what, we're going to paint what our strategic plan is on that building. And it's made a ton of difference, right? Like, okay, it's not a little prison, it's our middle school. And those, excuse me, those walls were, like perfect for a billboard. And so why not advertise what we're all about? And so, it's the little things that we're able to do right now that are keeping the community engaged and involved, and our kids, feeling as though the school they belong there, that this is where they are. But by golly, I want to take our kids into another middle school and show them what might be. And we have to provide hope to our kids, and many of our kids don't have a whole lot of hope at home, but we can provide it at school, and I think we can do a better job of providing it in facilities that match their dreams and aspirations.
There is an impact on home values also, and it's hard to measure, but it does affect when someone wants to sell a house. Buyers are looking at the quality of the schools and the condition of the schools.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. That's when I moved to Spokane back in '88. I'm going to date myself here, but back in '88 in high school, my mom looked at where were the best schools and also the best golf team. So I went right. And but that's absolutely the truth. So so I want to make sure that our listeners understand the cost breakdown of this again. And I just want to make sure, just say it. You said it already very well, Neale, but basically the $220 million breaks down to $1.96 per thousand of assessed value for a homeowner. Because this capital projects levy is expiring, I'm guessing, what was it, a 3-year capital levy, maybe?
4.
Was it a 4-year? Okay, so
it was a 4-year with the plan that we were going to do a bond at the end of it.
Okay, so it's been on the books. You've been collecting for 4 years. This is sunsetting. This is retiring. So it's going to come off the books, and that's 73 cents per thousand of assessed value. So that is why the net now, would be the impact to our taxpayers would be a total of $1.23. That's the difference that they would see, an increase of that. And that's how you come up with that amount. So we're not trying to do any magic, smoke and mirrors here. This is the net impact on taxpayers. And then that's how you get to the $492 if it was, a home of 400,000. So I think that's just really important for people to understand that.
And it's a lot.
To that.
And we recognize it's a lot, but our needs are a lot, if that makes sense. MJ, do you mind showing the next 2 slides as well?
Sure.
So
okay, Neale.
This is East Valley's tax rates over time. And so one of the reasons the jump looks so big now is our tax rates actually kind of declined in East Valley over the past few years. Historically, though, we're a lot closer to where we have been. And you can see the last time we had a bond back, those first 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, the black bars are our last bond. That's when it was paid off. So it, yeah, it has an impact. But the next slide, I think, really shows where East Valley is in comparison to our neighbors. So right now, if you look at that total tax rate, we're currently the green. So this is all school districts in Spokane County. Our total tax rate, which includes the any levies, bonds, it includes all direct school taxes that go directly to the school district. And so we are fourth in the county. And if it passes, we definitely move up that list. But we're right in the tax rate with our neighbors, and so we're not asking for the highest tax rate in the county. Doesn't make it any easier, and we understand that. But we do want taxpayers to know that we're attempting to be fiscally responsible.
We're down. I mean, if you look at like Great Northern and Orchard Prairie, and on this one, Orchard Prairie's new bond isn't showing yet, so they'll bump up because they passed a bond last year. But Great Northern is a school district over by Cheney and Medical Lake. It has 44 kids in it. So for us to have, and I'm. Again, the reason that we're in the shape that we're in is because we've had no debt. We've been debt free for so long, right? So the Spokane probably won't move much because what they tend to do is they pay off a bond and pass another bond. We're not that kind of a system. And so Cheney's will go up as well. It's not marked on here. It puts us in around the middle of where we should be based off of enrollment on the right hand side. It's just been a long time since we've been able to pass a bond.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is helpful to kind of do a comparison and understand the impact. So again, the green is where you're at. The highlighted green is where you're at currently. If your bond passes, then you would move up to where the yellow is, and you
Correct.
can see that in relation with the surrounding school districts. So that's definitely helpful. I've a question for you. Why do you think that the previous bonds failed? And what are you doing to maybe correct that or help overcome those challenges in the past? And I've kind of heard, things through the grapevine through the years. So I'm kind of curious what your guys' perspectives are, because I think that's an important, that's the community voting, right? And so what did you take away from that, and what did you learn from that?
So do you want to take it, Neil?
It's up to you.
Well, I'll give an overview of what I think, and mind you, I was in 9 Mile at the time, right? So from an outside perspective, and listening to the superintendent talk at the county level, at the time there was a movement to go to a K-8 district-wide K-8, and then we'd have our 9-12. And while at the time the superintendent had the support of the board. But I don't believe that there was support from within the community. And then things just came to an abrupt end on the bond. And the community has since gone through several superintendents. And we've been in healing since the K-8. Nobody, I don't think anybody intended to make things horrible. It didn't land well. Maybe hadn't been massaged the way that it needed to if we were going to make that kind of a change.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to involve community input on the front end of these conversations. So let's talk about that a little bit. So you believe it was the proposal of the K-8 that really kind of did not sit well with the community, and therefore it didn't pass. And ever since then, it just, kind of fell kind of raw.
We haven't run one since.
Okay. So
we haven't. I think you can see that in the results. When that K was going on, those approval percentages were below 40%. Before that, they were in the 50% range. So passing a bond requires a 60% yes vote. And that's a hard it's a hard number to hit anytime.
Yeah.
But you can see those bonds in April of 2011 and February of 2013, how much lower those approval ratings were than the past bonds, and I think it really shows that the community wasn't happy what was happening.
Right, for sure. So how have you involved the community then on the conversations and including them in on the front end? I always believe, I learned that actually in the school district when I was on the
Yeah.
school board, that you include community in on the whole process of planning and input. You don't bring them in on the latter end. So tell everybody about what your efforts have been to do that.
Yeah. So from the very beginning, MJ, when I got here 5 years ago, it was clear in the interview process, as it was in any surveys that I did with the community or interviews that I did with staff. One, we were lacking a strategic plan. And two, we got to do something about our facilities, and we got to do something about them now. So 5 years later, right, I couldn't, as superintendent, I couldn't just dive in and say, yep, we got to do something with our facilities. So the most important thing that we had to do was create a strategic plan. And so we are in year 2 of a 6-year strategic plan. And that strategic plan included the community, it included staff, it included parents, students, all kinds of voice. And so the strategic plan was created with facilities being a part of the strategic plan, right? So there's a slide on there that shows the facilities improvement team and the work that was done. So when we did, go ahead.
Can I just interject there? That strategic plan wasn't just staff creating that. There were community members on that strategic plan committee. We had local legislators on the strategic plan committee. So that was really that first step of involving the community.
Yeah. And so, I started talking with the Spokane Valley Chamber, started talking with our 4th district representatives about the need here in East Valley. It was bigger than in East Valley, right? A stronger East Valley is a stronger Spokane Valley. And so that's really the approach that we have been taking over the course of the last 5 years, just building it up, building it up, building it up. Every opportunity that I had to mention facilities, I did. That it's coming, right? That we have to do something. It's been 12 years since we've asked, and we need to do something. And so it is just, I would say it's more of a grassroots. We didn't survey everybody, do all of those kinds of things. One, it costs a lot of money. Two, we needed to get involved and get our hands dirty in the actual what is it. So with that facilities improvement team, we took them to our facilities. We went through all of the OSPI reports on our facilities. And from there, literally the last probably 4 months was, okay, now with all of this information, what are we going to do? And so it was a whole lot of work. And I just need to share that Neale and I were basically on the balcony. We weren't on the dance floor. We allowed them to really come up with what the plan was, because had I driven it, we wouldn't have gotten where we ended up. And it needed to come from the community itself. And so that while a small representation of the community, how do you get everybody involved and to agree to this is what we need to do, right? At some point, you have to put it out there. And we have to, at a minimum, get a pulse, and at a maximum, we pass, and we're not spending more time and money on, just putting the ballot measure on the ballot is going to cost us about $50,000, right? So if we fail, then we're going back. No, okay, survey to the community. What will you? So time, money, and the cost goes up by the time we pass one. So we're at this critical mass. I believe that there is no better time than we have right now to pass this bond. We can kick around the edges if we don't pass it, and figure out what will happen. But ultimately, and in the end, if we don't pass now, the cost just goes up, and perhaps the delivery of what we're able to do goes down. And there's one slide in there that I took from 9 Mile. It says a local, hold on a sec here, a regional example. It's right before that projected tax rates page, MJ.
Let's see here.
There it is.
Example,
right? Yeah. So you mentioned my time in 9 Mile. In 2014, we attempted to pass a bond twice. We failed twice in the mid 50s. The project cost for the new high school, including the state match, was just shy of $45 million. When their current superintendent went back out, same size building, in fact, 200 square feet less. That building has now gone to 107% over what it was in 2014. Now, I'm not suggesting that if we don't pass and we wait 10 years that it will be $440 million. I don't know. And I don't know what the tax rate would be, but it's not going to be cheaper than what it is right now. And so that's my fear and my worry of if we don't pass, we are kicking the can down the road on facilities that need major help.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Neale?
Nope. I completely agree. I did want to just one thing Brian mentioned about the cost of the election. I think a lot of the community members, even our staff, don't know that when a school district runs an election, Spokane County sends us a bill. So we are paying for every hour of the election workers' time during the election. And so when he talks about $50,000, that's actually going to Spokane County to actually run the election.
Yep.
And we're the only one on the ballot, so we don't get to share it with anyone else.
Oh,
Yep.
wow. Interesting. So,
Yeah.
so it's the only thing on the ballot for the East Valley School District taxpayers.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's so important what you guys did. I applaud your efforts and, bringing the community in on the front end throughout the whole process. And I love that. I've never heard that expression of being in the balcony, kind of as people, synergized and communicated and came up with a plan without like a heavy imprint from the leaders of the school district. I think that's so important. And I think that's much more likely to have success than if you did it the other way, as, it sounds like maybe in the past that was done. What the other thing I want to talk about is what assurances can you give to the community about being transparent in this process? You're promising the community, this is a return on their investment, right? You're saying, okay, give us your trust. We're asking, and let's look at that slide again. We're asking for $220 million. It breaks out to, net impact on the citizens would be $1.23 increase per thousand. So again, that's on a $400,000 home. We're talking about $492 a year, which is $41 a month. And I know, yes, it is an increase, but let's be honest, it's only probably a couple coffees a month that $41, would bring.
Yeah.
So you're promising like a new high school, a new middle school to people. How do you be transparent through this process, and how do you guarantee that this is actually what the citizens are going to get for this investment?
It's a great question, MJ. I'm just going to backtrack 1 second, say a couple coffees a month. And for you and I, it's a couple coffees a month, right? And for some families, a couple coffees a month means like, am I going to pay the heat? Am I going to pay whatever it is? We have folks that are strapped, and I get that. So we know this isn't a small ask. As far as like transparency, so one of the things that we have, and we haven't named them yet, but we have sent out an application to be on the bond oversight committee, and that will be between 8 and 12 local community members who have construction, finance backgrounds, those kinds of things. So that group will be this oversight committee on the bond. The other part that it may sound crazy, but when we are not reliant on the state match funds to build our own projects, we have a whole lot more flexibility we will be reliant on them for the projects that we do on our elementary schools, but the taxpayers are paying upfront for the middle school, for the high school, and that just takes away a whole lot of bureaucracy from Olympia in making sure that we're able to pay our folks on time and to get things done in a equitable or in a timely fashion. Central Valley did an amazing job with this when over the last dozen years that they were building, because they front funded it. They weren't reliant on the state's funds. So outside of that, what I will tell you is, one of the reasons we are trying to be as fiduciarily responsible as we possibly can. An example of that is that we intend to keep our kids in the current buildings rather than bring in portables. Those are dollars that our community would be paying for temporary need. We're not doing any of that because we want every penny to go towards the projects and not towards the temporary, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Neil, what else you got for that?
Yeah, well, really the bond oversight committee. So that group is going to meet and review everything the district's doing and just ensure that we are doing what we're promising to do. Not that I'm saying we wouldn't anyway, but that those group of experts that live in the community that can then make sure we're doing what we're saying and can go to the community and say, yep, they're on budget, they're doing what they said, they're not wasting the funds.
And how would that be reported back? It sounds like kind of a representative body, which I think is great. And it's an accountability body to kind of oversee this project. How will they report that back to the citizens?
Good question. I mean, we're open to, we're thinking, for sure that our newsletters will go out to every community member, they go to every household. But if there are other methods, we are open to suggestions. And I think some things like this podcast are a great example of things that I think we'd be more than open to report that back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I welcome that. You all are more than welcome to holler at me and say, hey, MJ, let's do an update. And let's, be transparent with our community, because I think that's what's so important.
That's one of the things my neighbor, I love the guy, spent probably 2 hours with him just discussing the bond this last weekend. And his biggest concern is, I trust you. How do I trust that the dollars are going, once they leave the district and they're being paid, the things are being paid for, some of it is difficult unless you have the right system in place to make sure that we are doing what we do. And we have an amazing, we're not serial builders. We don't do this very often. As shown in 30 years, we haven't been able to. So we have a great partnership, a contract, a construction project management team that we've hired. That's their job. We work with them hand in hand, but that's their expertise. We're not experts in this field, so we have to rely on those. And I've had a relationship with OAC Jeff Jurgensen since I was in 9 Mile. And they did our two projects there for the two elementaries right when I arrived in 9 Mile. And so it's part of it is being vulnerable enough to say, look, this isn't my area of expertise, so I have to have people alongside. And that's where we're at. That's why we're also bringing on the BOC, the oversight committee. We want to be accountable to our constituents.
Yeah. That's a good thing. And I think, it's not necessarily any school district's fault, but we are in an era of a lot of questioning government institutions and fundings, and we have to be responsible in that, and the elected representatives, your school board, and you as an extension of that, need to listen to those citizens. So I really, again, applaud you all for taking those efforts to make sure, okay, this is how we're going to set this up to ensure, way after just the passing of the bond, right? What assurances do people have, or help explain the mechanisms to ensure people that might be going, well, can this rate change? Can you increase this amount? Because I think there is also a lot of, suspicions and misunderstandings about that.
100%. The 220 million, we cannot collect a penny more than 220 million.
Well,
Neil, I'll let you take it from there.
So those payments are not even calculated by East Valley. The Spokane County assessor does all that work, and all we're allowed to collect is the bond principal and interest. So basically, we're paying back the bond every year. And so I've gotten the question a lot. Well, if all of our assessed value doubles, the district's going to get twice as much money, and we won't get any more money. All we're legally allowed to pay is just the payments. It's like paying your mortgage back. If your income goes up, that mortgage payment's not going to change, and we will. That's all we're allowed to collect is that bond payment.
Right. And
however, we do have the opportunity later on, like when interest rates go down, that we can, like you do on your own home, right? Refinance, and those dollars, that just drops that amount even more so, right? So we pay attention to that over the course of the 21 years, to make sure that we're providing any breaks that we can to our community.
That's important. So is the rate a straight rate that doesn't change, or does it depend on? So it's the $1.96 that people would see right now on their per thousand of assessed value. So talk to people a little bit about that. So does that ever change? The $1.96.
It will, because we are making assumptions on assessed value growth and what that rate's going to do over the next 21 years. But when we do that, we're very conservative in those growth rates, because we don't want that tax rate to ever be more than what we've said here. Right. What typically happens, and I can't promise it'll happen, but what typically happens is that rate will actually go down over time, because we get new industrial, new businesses moving into the district that are paying part of that share. Because really, it's the payment spread out over everyone. So when we have, a new manufacturer that opens in the district, that relieves the homeowners of some of that tax burden. And so that what typically happens is, because we've been conservative in that growth percentage, that rate will typically tend down.
Gotcha. So so everybody makes sure to know this $220 million will stay fixed. It doesn't change, but depending on what happens in the community with more, with potentially incoming businesses or incoming homes being built, that gets spread out. And so that can change that rate of assessed value.
Okay. When Amazon came in, it dropped the per thousand by about 6 cents.
Wow.
Right. So, and I think it's important to note too, and we don't know it because this is what we live in, but East Valley voters have the benefit of all of the industry around us to offset the cost. So as an example, my colleague in Newport, they're running a bond for about 45 million. And that is really on the local property owners by themselves. There's no industry in Newport, right? And so their cost per thousand is right around $1.70.
Wow.
Or 45 million. We're collecting, we're asking for 220 million, and our ask is 20 cents more. It's not fair, but we have that benefit. It was a struggle that we had in 9 Mile as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been great information. Any final thoughts that you all want to share with our citizens, your taxpayers, as they deliberate this and consider this on the ballot, that the ballots are dropping next week?
Yeah. I'm hesitant to say this, but I'm going to share, MJ, that, and I had already shared it with you. This is my last year in K-12, P-12, I should say. After 33 years and 22 years as a superintendent, the one thing that I haven't learned is time management. And my family has been the folks who have also, I guess, sacrificed, right? And I have an opportunity, and I'm taking it, that will allow me to spend more time at home. However, I mentioned in the beginning that this is my community. Like, truly, I love East Valley. This is where we are going to stay. We will continue to live out off of Forker and in the East Valley School District. I intend to stay involved and to be a part of it when I want to, not because it's part of my job, right? And so when I say that, I say I'm going to be a taxpayer like everybody else. I'm not going to have a tie to the school district. I want to pay this tax. I don't like paying taxes any more than anyone else does. And we need it for this community, our kids, our students, in the ability for us to provide hope for our kids and for our community. With one ballot measure, we can change the trajectory of East Valley. And I know it's more than facilities, but facilities is a big part, and we're overdue.
Neale, how about you?
I would just encourage, if anyone has any questions, to reach out to Brian or I. Our contact information is on the East Valley website. We're happy to answer any questions anyone has.
I'll go to anybody's home and have a conversation. We'll show up anywhere. And it's not about swaying. It's about educating. And at the end of the day, folks vote the way they need to vote, and we get that.
Yeah. And where would people go if they want to know more information? Do you have a website, or tell them what the website is?
Yep. www.evsd.org.
Okay. And is it right there? I imagine it's right there on the front.
It's right there. Yeah.
And MJ, you have my cell number. If somebody wants it, give it to them.
Yeah. And I encourage everybody, if you've got further questions, get your questions answered. There's a lot, reach out to Brian, reach out to Neale. They're very personal people. I know Brian for a while. I adopted him as my cousin, I think, about years ago. No relation, but you're my cousin now, because I can always use more family. But,
Amen.
It is so important to really make sure that you understand the ins and outs. And I get it that, we live in a time where there are some things that maybe we don't all agree with that are happening in our schools. There's some policies that are out there. But again, what East Valley School District can determine and dictate as far as policy and what is mandated by the state, it's very important to understand those differences. And so I encourage everybody, get your questions asked, go have the tough conversations. I don't think either one of these gentlemen are afraid to have those, courageous conversations, those tough conversations, and have that, back and forth. This is your community. It's very, very important, the investment on our children's education. And whether, you have kids in the district or not, it does impact what is going on in the rest of the community. And Spokane Valley as a whole, as you mentioned before, as part of the Spokane Valley, growth and bringing in businesses and encouraging people to come and live here. It's a good investment on our community. So thank you.
Maybe one other thing that I would add is, and folks wouldn't know because we can't necessarily advertise it on our website, but it will be on the committee's, the Yes Committee's website. We have the endorsements of all three of the 4th district legislators. And so we also have Spokane Valley Chamber, Greater Spokane Incorporated. And I, between Representative Schmidt and Chase and Senator Christian, they didn't endorse it because, well, it's hard to, as a Republican, to endorse a tax, right? They did so because they've spent time in our buildings and they've seen them and they know what our kids need versus where other districts are currently, if that makes sense. And yeah. I'm grateful for that endorsement. Sometimes it's not about politics.
Yep. Exactly why I have you on.
Thank you.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's why it's about our community, and it's about what's best for our community, and doing what's right, for our citizens, being transparent. And that's, again, why I appreciate you both coming on, taking your time to share transparently, to answer some tougher questions, and to help get the information out to the community. Very important. So thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, MJ.
And you all take care. And until next time, we'll see you guys all later.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.